This is Laura Ingraham. If you're unfamiliar, she's a Fox News host, absolutely unglued from reality in every way. She decided to do this episode about the new normal and how things aren't normal, even though Democrats apparently promised they would be normal. I don't remember that, but okay. Anyway, it's just basically a constant stream of propaganda. So I wanted to watch it and point out all the propaganda techniques. It starts off, this is actually part 2. If you haven't seen the other, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. The last one, we had a trans member of the military basically explaining that it's valuable to have diversity in any system because diversity contributes to strength, which is objectively true. I always go with the science. If it wasn't true, I'd tell you. It is true. So anyway, look, this decorated military officer. Let's start here. Let's listen to this decorated military officer talk about diversity in a system and how it makes the system stronger, and then Laura Ingraham make fun of him for it. By the by, we're going to be playing Breath of the Wild 2. I'm just kind of running around grinding, so I won't spoil anything, I promise.
Culture of respect and understanding that makes the armed forces better.
Nothing personal, but most Americans, of course, including most new immigrants, disagree.
That's simply false. Most Americans have respect for trans people. Most Americans are actually in favor of the trans community. It just doesn't seem that way because the loud minority is losing their minds constantly at the possibility that trans people might be treated fairly or equally in some way. That really pisses them off. They can't handle it. So Laura Ingraham is Laura Ingraham is simply incorrect on this point, and she probably knows that.
Now, I wonder how much that day-long pride extravaganza cost the White House, and who paid for it?
Who cares? I wonder how much anything costs at the White House. You know, I mean, they have a budget for all kinds of events, don't they? How much did their 4th of July event cost the White House? The White House can have any event that they want. When you get a guy in power, he can have any event he wants. That's how this works.
Well, not the Bidens. But relax. It's all normal. Look, things are so bad that students who merely use the phrase biological man in referring to a trans person are being graded down in colleges.
No, they are not. They are not. That is simply false. Show me a single example of that taking place. You're telling me that people in college are being graded down. They're losing points in college for using the term biological man? Look, if you walk into a room of Jewish people, for example, and you sit down at the table, you look them in the eye and you say, your grandfather died in the Holocaust. And you get real specific with what happened, you know. Boxcars and all. That's technically just speaking the truth. Technically, there's nothing really exactly wrong with that because you're just telling people what happened, right? But it's obvious what you're doing. You're trying to hurt people. The person sitting there talking about what happened to Jews in the Holocaust, to the Jews in the room, are aware of that. The person referring to biological men in reference to trans people knows what they're doing. This is like a cheap trick that they're playing. Now, if you're a shithead, I have no problem with you losing points in your college class. If your college professor deems you to be a shithead, they're within their rights to remove points. I don't give a shit. There's no reason to be a shithead. If you can't get along with everybody else in the class and just be a normal human being, then you shouldn't be in the class at all. Period. If that's what, I mean, I'm assuming that's what she's talking about. I have no idea. Is this even a real story? I don't know. I took this story for granted and assumed in good faith that it was real. It still does not make a point for her.
Now, later in the show, we're going to talk to one student who was punished for stating the truth. Yeah, the truth is dangerous to the regime.
Again, You know, the Nazis said the exact same thing and then went on to say technically true things, maybe, and downright false things sometimes, and use that as a premise, a pretext to hurt the people around them. I'm just saying, just pointing out the strategy here. It's the same strategy, but okay.
It's so dangerous that they believe it's not just normal, but it's necessary to gut free speech to stay in power.
Oh, they care about free speech. That's so fascinating. That's really interesting. So you're willing to put all of the books that have been banned from libraries back in those libraries then, right? You cared about free speech so much that you removed them, but you're putting them back now because you care about it again? Is that right? Yeah, they never cared about free speech. Not for a second. You know what they cared about? Using the rights delineated in the Constitution against people any way that they possibly could. You know, they talk about free speech, loving free speech. I love free speech. I want free speech. Blah, 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 blah. They say that constantly, right? Which I really do love free speech. I really do want it. They talk about it constantly. And then ban drag events. That's free speech, baby. That's what it's all about. People are allowed to do whatever the hell they want. But not in these people's minds. Not drag events, apparently. Drag events are too far. These people, I'm talking Laura Ingraham and other Fox hosts like Sean Hannity, are willing to ban drag events for the sake of the children. But when real children are really dying from real, gun deaths at schools, it's dead silence from these people. All we need to do is make sure that people are being responsible with their gun rights. That's it. They never cared. They never gave a shit about any of it. You know what they cared about? Their culture war issues. So they're okay with infringing on free speech to save the children when it comes to drag shows. But they're not okay with infringing on free speech to save the children when it comes to gun issues. When it comes to the fact that guns are the leading killer of children in this country, to my knowledge. She never cared about it. Not for a second. Never cared about children. You know what she cared about? Propaganda. She cared about propagandizing to the people around her. That's it. Anyway, let's keep listening.
Washington piece from Saturday bemoans the recent federal court ruling that forbids the feds from collaborating with social media companies. Social media injunction unravels plans to protect 2024 elections.
Wait, I'm sorry? What are they? I don't understand what this is saying. I'm not 100% convinced that it's saying what she claims that it is. Is this even real? Did she Photoshop this? I mean, Fox News has been known to Photoshop stuff like this before. I don't know. Just don't trust a word out of these people's mouths by default, okay? Because they have been sued in court for straight up lying about things and lost billions of dollars. I have no idea what they're talking about here.
Now, I still remember when liberals used to be suspicious of big corporations and big government working hand in glove. But now
okay, again, I feel like I feel like her audience is in on a joke with her that I'm not in on. That I simply don't understand. I have no clue what the hell she's talking about right now. What about corporations being, like, close to the left? What? What the hell is she talking about? It's like 24/7 echo chamber nonsense with these people. It's like only they know what they're talking about, and every one of them seems to. This is insane. Okay, let's just start again. Try listening and understanding. I really want to understand what she's talking about here with the whole woke corporations and the left used to be against corporations or something.
Plans to protect 2024 elections. Now, I still remember when liberals used to be suspicious of big corporations and big government working hand in glove.
Yep. People to the left are generally suspicious of that happening, yes, even now, okay?
But now the regime is so petrified because as we approach the critical election, Americans may actually be able to communicate with each other.
Wait, what the hell is she talking about? This is the perfect example. This is exactly what I'm talking about right here, okay? She is in an echo chamber with her audience that cannot be pierced. Nobody has any clue what she's talking about, except for her audience, except for the people that watch her every day and follow her train of thought, who follow her logic and her, like, storylines and everything. It's insane. What are you talking about right now, Laura? For those of us who aren't immersed in Fox News 24/7, please clue us in.
Very threatening. The ugly truth is the left believes that free speech only exists for them. For anyone else, it's dangerous. Dangerous for democracy.
Okay. I actually know what she's talking about here. I was hoping she was going to clue us in on this. Apparently, she just decided not to. This is what I'm talking about right here, though. Like, do any of you know what she's talking about? I'm going to explain it. But think about this. What she's said thus far has made almost no sense if you're unfamiliar with their talking points and stuff, right? So what she's talking about right now, let's just step back. Let's listen to this section again. She's talking about people to the left of hunting the homeless for sport, not, wanting to be in with big government or not wanting to work with big government or whatever, right? That's what she said, basically. So what the hell is she talking about? There was a story. It was the Twitter file story, basically. If you don't know about this, there's a story a while back. Elon Musk purchased Twitter and decided to attempt to destroy the reputation of the old crew, the last people that ran it, by claiming that there was some big secretive thing that took place and they favored it for, Joe Biden when Donald Trump and Biden were facing off in the election or whatever. It was all made up nonsense. The entire thing was fabricated to take negative attention off of Elon Musk and to give Donald Trump a boost. Elon Musk was hoping that maybe, just maybe, if he did something for Donald Trump, something nice for him, free of charge, maybe he'd come back to Twitter. He never did, of course, because Donald Trump does what he wants regardless of who helps him. He ultimately doesn't give a shit who helps him. So anyways, that's what she's talking about. She's referring to the Twitter files. Now, the claim with the Twitter files is that the government, Joe Biden's White House, tried to use Twitter or forced Twitter to take down tweets on his behalf. Except for the fact that Joe Biden wasn't in the White House. Donald Trump was. Oh, and Donald Trump's White House actually told Twitter to take down tweets, and they did. That is real government censorship of speech. But what is she hinting at right now? Is she hinting at Donald Trump being like a disgusting piece of shit for manipulating private companies as the head of of the government as the leader or as a government official, as the leader of a governmental branch. Oh, of course she's not talking about Trump. She's talking about Biden. The Biden White House, all the way back in 2018, you remember. When Trump was president, the Biden White House was out there doing this stuff, apparently. They don't even, when I say that, I'm talking about Fox News hosts, Laura Ingraham and others. These people, they don't even care if the things that they say make any sense at all. It makes no difference. They just want to get these talking points out, scare the shit out of old people to, like, no matter what, whatever it takes, and get them to vote for the person that they tell them they should vote for. Now, Fox News hasn't taken a hard stance on which candidate they're going to back in 2024, and that's kind of upset Trump, like a lot. They've kind of been playing a little bit to each. They've given DeSantis a little play, and they've given Trump a little play. God, I'm sorry. I've had crumbs from my breakfast on my shirt this entire time. You guys didn't say a word. You just let that shit sit there. Thanks for nothing. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Anyways, here's the interesting thing. Like, the Fox News, this is one of their propaganda techniques. Let me explain how it happens. This is how they're kind of hedging their bets between the two candidates, Trump and DeSantis. They'll do the man on the street segment, right? They get one of their supposed reporters, quote unquote, out there on the street in New York City, of course, because that's where Fox News is headquartered, Manhattan. I pass it from time to time. So they'll get their reporter, if you can even call him that, out on the street to interview 100 people, right? And out of 100 people, they'll ask them, which Republican candidate do you want to win the election? Which Republican candidate are you rooting for? And they'll get some Trumps, they'll get some DeSantis's, they'll get some Chris Christie's, you know, that kind of thing. But Fox News will cut out everything except for the person that they want to support. So they'll show 4, 5, 6 examples back to back of people saying, oh, DeSantis all the way. Love DeSantis. DeSantis is the best. We want DeSantis. That's the little propaganda technique that they run. That's their method of supporting one candidate over another, of signaling that they are willing to support either one. Now, after the primary, they'll probably pick a candidate before the primary, maybe. All the Fox News hosts will align behind them, and they will all decide together which one they're going to support permanently, and they're going to scream it from a bullhorn. You should be voting DeSantis. Or you should be voting Trump, or you should be voting this or that, or whatever. So it'll probably happen before the primary. But if it doesn't happen before the primary, it'll certainly happen after the primary. After the primary, Fox News will most definitely align behind whoever the Republican nominee is. No questions asked. No matter what. It could be Mao Zedong himself, and they would support the guy. Because they want to win, and they will do whatever it takes to do it. This is party media. This Fox News should have effectively state-affiliated media. It's just propaganda, plain and simple. There is no deeper analysis to it. This is simply propaganda. So anyway, let's keep listening to Laura Ingraham propagandize to everybody listening.
When liberals used to be suspicious of big corporations and big government working hand in glove.
Yeah. it's a bad thing for corporations and for government to work together like that. It's bad for the government to order anybody to do anything, which is why it's so disturbing to me that Donald Trump actually ordered Twitter to take down one of the tweets that he didn't like from Chrissy Teigen, I believe was her name. Biden White House, on the other hand, had nothing to do with it. There was no Biden White House at the time. But they're going to ignore that but they're going to ignore that inconvenient little fact, of course.
But now the regime is so petrified because as we approach the critical election, Americans may actually be able to communicate with each other. Very threatening.
So I'm, again, like, everything that she's saying is propagandistic nonsense that only makes sense if you're within their echo chamber, right? So let me try to explain what that statement meant. Elon Musk purchased Twitter and it has unblocked a bunch of neo-Nazi accounts. I'm sorry, I shouldn't even be saying neo-Nazi. They're just Nazi accounts. He unblocked a bunch of Nazis, right? Full-blown, self-avowed Nazis, people that describe themselves that way. He unblocked them and allowed them a platform again. And Laura Ingraham is, I guess, celebrating the fact that Nazis can now get on Twitter and talk to everybody else and use it as their bullhorn again. Okay, great.
The ugly truth is the left believes that free speech only exists for them. For anyone else, it's dangerous. Dangerous for democracy.
Yeah, I already covered this. This is nonsense. Again, it's just propaganda.
Remember how enraged they were to cover Trump in just a casual...
Who is they? Are they in the room with us right now, Laura? Do you ever notice how people like Laura Ingraham, how these Fox News hosts, Sean Hannity and others, use the word they without establishing the subject of a sentence? Usually, you establish the subject of the sentence before saying that. They, in their mind, in all seriousness, is the cabal, the deep state, the evil group out there that's trying to get one over on you, trying to hurt you, trying to cause you problems in life. That's who the they is that she's referring to here.
Moment last month.
So let me step back. Listen again.
Believes that free speech only exists for them. For anyone else, it's dangerous. Dangerous for democracy. Remember how enraged they were to cover Trump in just a casual moment last month?
As we watch Donald Trump attempt to turn his arrest and indictment into some sort of campaign commercial, the folks in the control room, I don't need to see any more of that.
Yeah, well, there wasn't, like, enragement at this. So let me tell you, like, Donald Trump is a master of propaganda. Let me tell you Donald Trump's little trick. And this is why CNN, or I don't know who the hell that was, but this is why most news stations, except probably Fox News, didn't cover Donald Trump's event. Donald Trump uses every event that takes place, every single event, as an opportunity to propagandize to the people around him. So he's been arrested twice. Once by the state. He was arrested by New York, Alvin Bragg, for, I don't know what exactly. It was something to do with some crooked business. Like he's keeping 2 sets of books or something. I don't remember. And he was then arrested for espionage, basically. For having a bunch of documents sitting around that he just, they're classified to the highest level that he just wanted. Oh, and they were in a room with a photocopier, too, so whatever. Anyways, that's what Donald Trump was arrested for recently. So here's Trump's little trick. Anytime he knows he has the spotlight, like in that type of situation, like when he's arrested, he knows people are going to want to listen to what he has to say next. They're going to want to listen to his reaction to being arrested. So he knows every news network from here to Texas is paying attention to what he says next. and he's going to use it as an opportunity to propagandize and lie and spread the same bullshit that he's been spreading since day one. Election denialism and all of that other garbage. So CNN, rightly, they made the correct decision, in my opinion, to say, we don't need to hear this. We've heard this a billion times from him already. It was nonsense then, and it's nonsense now. He's just using us to propagandize, and we're not going to give him that opportunity. That's basically what CNN was saying there. Now, what was the point Laura Ingraham was getting at with this?
Casual moment last month?
As we watch Donald Trump attempt to turn his
Yeah, I guess it was CNN that was doing this.
arrest and indictment into some sort of campaign commercial, the folks in the control room, I don't need to see any more of that.
Right. It was a campaign commercial. Nobody needed to see any more of that. It was just garbage.
Now, do you really think those same people are going to want to see Trump or DeSantis on stage debating Biden?
Oh, I would love to see that. Yes, absolutely. I am, quote unquote, those same people. I am what you might refer to as somebody to the left of hunting the homeless for sport. I would love to see a debate between Trump and DeSantis, just those two, let alone anybody else. I would love to see that. But add Biden into the mix? Oh boy, I would love that to death. I would pay money to see that, seriously. Shit, dude, I'd go up to maybe $100 to get the pay-per-view of that. That would be fascinating. But of course, it's not going to happen. You know why? Because Donald Trump isn't going to let it. I would absolutely love it to see that stuff. Apparently, though, Laura Ingraham believes that I'm just this evil person, apparently, that hates the right and hates Donald Trump and doesn't want to see him debate DeSantis and blah, 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 blah. Insane, dude. Oh my God, would I love to see those guys debate, all three of them. But it has to be all three. Can't just be like two of them. Has to be all three.
Now, when the U.S. government is pushing a radical agenda, let's face it, it's totally normal. It's democracy in action. But when the government truly represents the people and their preferences, it's fringe and it's
Dude, what the hell is she talking about? Another example of her referring to something that I feel like is like an inside joke almost with like, or an inside message with her audience that like nobody else knows about except for her and her audience. This is like a terrible way to do things. Let me tell you something about how I kind of run my channel or how I do my thing here. I look at my analytics and see that on average, people watch about 2.5 of my videos before disappearing into the ether and never watching me again. So I assume if you... So what is her show? A nightly show? Her analytics may be a little bit different. Maybe people, there will be people who watch her every single night and have for years. Of course, it's the same with me. There will be people who watch me every single day and have for years. But on average, what do her analytics look like? I would assume that she's probably seeing about the same numbers as me. About 2.5 views per person. So if you haven't said something in the past 3 episodes, if you haven't explained a concept or told a story or whatever in the past 3 episodes or in the past week, you should explain it again. Because people are going to be unaware of what you're talking about, and you're going to end up in a weird little echo chamber like what we're seeing right now with her. I have no clue what the hell she is talking about right now. I can kind of make out some of it, a little bit, because I follow politics like you wouldn't believe, like nobody else on planet Earth practically. But I am honestly, like, lost. It's like she thinks she has this close relationship with her audience and she doesn't care about anybody else. She doesn't care about getting new ones. This is a really bad, just from one, from one media person to another, Laura. Please give us some context for what the hell you're talking about. Jesus, dude, this is bad. Let's just step back. Listen to this again. See if you can make any sense of this.
Now, when the U.S. government is pushing a radical agenda, let's face it, it's totally normal. It's democracy in action.
Okay, that's not happening.
But when the government truly represents the people and their preferences, it's fringe and it's fascist.
He is fascist, a person with fascist tendencies.
Wait. Who? Who is? They didn't even tell us who they're talking about right now. Who are we referring to? I don't understand. See, this is the problem. She assumes that her audience is going to know that that she's talking about somebody very specific. Who's radical, who's fringe, who's fascist? What are we talking about, Laura?
It's democracy in action. But when the government truly represents the people and their preferences, it's fringe and it's fascist.
He is fascist, a person with fascist tendencies.
Because the GOP, as we've talked about, Joy, is a fascist movement. He's a white nationalist. He is a fascist. He's embraced violence.
Who is he in this equation? I don't understand. It's like she's giving us just little bits and pieces of these conversations that don't fully make sense, that don't completely add up to anything meaningful. And she's allowing her audience to like fill in the blanks with their own rage. This is insane. This is actually really fascinating. I came in here expecting propaganda, and what I got was propaganda based on the premise that you already know a lot of the propaganda. Propaganda, assuming you've already been propagandized to for the past, 6 years or something. This is nuts, dude.
And finally, endless wars have become a mainstay of the regime. They're not just
endless wars. This is the talking point of the pro-Russia movement right now. When somebody wants to support Russia, they scream about endless wars. Now, we're not fighting a war in Ukraine. The money that we are putting into Ukraine is the best money that we have ever spent. Because I'm just getting out ahead of this before she goes down this this pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine route. I just want to say we are basically revealing a historical adversary, somebody who has historically been extremely adversarial to us and has done really terrible stuff to us, like meddled in our politics and stuff over the years. And I'm not talking over recent years. I mean, since the 1950s. The money that we spend on Ukraine is going to undermining the power of that historic adversary, and we don't have to lose a single American life to do it. As Lindsey Graham said, it is the best money that we have ever spent. Before I even give her an opportunity to propagandize for Russia, I just want to get that right out. Okay. Now let's hear her propagandize for Russia.
And finally, endless wars have become a mainstay of the regime. They're not just endless, by the way. They apparently are unwinnable, as we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. And sadly...
Oh, so she's comparing the Ukraine war to Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, those were unwinnable wars. Yes. Ukraine is fighting for their lives. And again, every penny we give to them undermines a historical adversary that we've had for 75 years or more. Hell, 100 years.
As we may see in Ukraine as well. Yet we're supposed to believe that it's totally normal for us to spend, $200 billion and counting on a war to protect the borders of another country and not...
Oh, yes. Spend more. really? Is it only 200 billion? Spend as much as it takes to give Ukraine what they need to undermine a historical adversary. Holy shit. This is, again, the best money that we have ever spent. No joke. We are getting a return on investment that you wouldn't even believe right now. This couldn't possibly be a better situation. Why are you defending Russia right now? This is a good situation for the United States, for our national security, and for our standing in the world. Why are you undermining it? Why are you saying that this is a bad thing when it's unequivocally and without question not? There's only one explanation that I can come up with here. Only one reason why I can think of that Fox News would support Russia over Ukraine right now in this moment in history. Let me tell you a little secret about world politics. This is how world politics works. All world politics. The United States hires spies to feed us information from China. China hires spies to feed them information about the United States. Russia hires spies to feed them information about Ukraine. That's how it works. Spies are all over the place. Every country hires spies for every other country or against every other country. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. They are on, this country's payroll. The question is, who are they? Who are the spies? It's impossible to really know unless unless they're outed. There's a guy named Robert Hanton who was famously a spy for the Soviet Union, who we caught back in the 90s, forever ago, and now he's sitting in ADX Florence Supermax for that. He was spying on the U.S. government. He's a member of the CIA, working for the Soviet Union and giving them information. And now he's sitting in Florence Supermax. The spies are out there. And they are being paid by Russia, by Putin, by China, by the United States. Every country does this. Every country. It's part of national security for everybody. Which people are on Russia's payroll? Just take a wild guess if you don't know. Let's just think about it for a moment. Which people, if you had to guess, in the media are on Russia's payroll?
Yet we're supposed to believe that it's totally normal for us to spend, $200 billion and counting on a war to protect the borders of another country, a non-NATO country, as our own border is wide open?
Yeah, our border is not wide open. Our border policy is no different now than it was under Donald Trump, first of all. Second of all, there are some people coming over the border at all times, I suppose. That's just part of the deal. That happens, I guess. Whatever. And I guess that we should try to enforce our laws. I'll say that. But let me put it this way. Immigration is phenomenally good for a system. Oh my God, is immigration good for any system. An infusion of new people to add to the workforce is so incredibly valuable to a country. Do you know that China and Japan don't have... I'm getting off on immigration here because she's hitting propaganda piece after propaganda piece after propaganda piece. I have to debunk each one. Do you know that China and Japan don't get immigrants the way that the United States does? They never have. China and Japan, particularly Japan's very nationalistic. They like to kind of, insulate themselves, and it's hard to immigrate to Japan, very hard. And as a result, China and Japan have to encourage their people to have babies, as many as possible. It's like a national duty Have more babies, as many as possible. Hell, Russia is even, they announced not too long ago, they are going to pay women, I think, $10,000 per child that they have. I don't even remember now. You're going to have to fact check that. You know why? No one's immigrating to Russia. They have massive brain drain. Now let me ask you this. What do you think happens when these people just don't have children, when they can't have any children? The country stops innovating. They stop producing, new goods. They stop being competitive in markets. The United States will never have to worry about that. You know why? Because we have right now about 1 million Germans per year coming to the United States, give or take. We have somewhere in the vicinity of, how many immigrants per year? And apparently in 2021, 20,000 Germans came to the United States. 20,000. 1.5 million immigrants total. 20,000 of those 1.5 million were Germans. Just give you a little bit of context there. You know why that is? Because this country is well known for being a land of opportunity, even though, there are other countries that have higher opportunities for that kind of thing. That's neither here nor there. Immigration is massive in the United States. We don't ever have to worry about running out of people. We don't have to worry about, are our people having enough children to replace the workers or whatever. We don't have to worry about it. Because we can bring in as many immigrants as we want. In fact, we should. Open the floodgates. Why aren't we allowing in as many immigrants as want to come here? Seriously, there is no downside to this, only upsides. You telling me we have an opportunity to get more workers into the system, to get more people pulling the levers and fighting and working and doing all of the stuff, taking care of the old people in the old folks' homes, working in the nurseries and all that stuff? You're telling me we could have that tomorrow if we wanted? If we just open the floodgates, invite as many people in as want to come? And Laura Ingraham is against that? Why? There is only one reason, seems to me, why anybody, including Laura Ingraham, would be opposed to opening the floodgates. Just open the doors wide open, let anybody in who wants to come in. There's one reason I can think of. You know what that reason is? It's the same reason the KKK gave for not wanting immigration back in the day. Let's keep listening to Laura Ingraham propagandize for Russia and propagandize against immigration, which objectively and without question hurts the United States to not have immigration.
We're supposed to believe that it's totally normal for us to spend, $200 billion and counting on a war to protect the borders of another country, a non-NATO country, as our own border is wide open?
No, our border isn't wide open, unfortunately. Wish it was. And it's the best money we've ever spent in Ukraine.
So what the angle has laid out, open borders, endless wars, a lower standard of living, deviant sexual indoctrination.
I'm sorry, what? What are you talking about? I'm so lost. Where did any of this come from? I'm sorry. Let me listen to that one more time. Try to understand what she's talking about here.
War to protect the borders of another country, a non-NATO country, as our own border is wide open? So what the angle has laid out, open borders, endless wars, a lower standard of living, deviant...
What the angle has laid out? What does she mean by the angle? Does she mean like the enemy? Is that what she's talking about? I'm just lost. Okay, let's assume she's talking about the enemy. So these are the things that she believes that people to the left of hunting the homeless for sport stand for, right? All right.
$200 billion and counting on a war to protect the borders of another country, a non-NATO country, as our own border is wide open? So what the angle has laid out, open borders, endless wars, a lower standard of living, deviant sexual indoctrination, it's not a byproduct of the regime's agenda. It is their agenda.
What's this about deviant sexual what? What the hell are you talking about? She is like, seriously, she is in a perpetual, what do you call it? Like, she seems to be in a perpetual circle of propaganda, a never-ending circle of propaganda that makes zero sense to anybody except for her and her listeners, her audience, who've been following what she says since the beginning. This is insane.
They use open borders to hold down wages and change the makeup of America.
Wait, open borders hold down wages? No. Allowing more people into the country, having higher immigration, actually increases wages for people. You're mistaken, Laura. But I'm very confident it's not a mistake. I'm pretty sure it was intentional. I can't imagine it wasn't.
They engage with China as they are to keep Wall Street and their donors happy, which then offshores jobs and hurts our workers. They push for endless wars that are
I have to step back and hit each one of these things because she's wrong about like all of it. And it's like a constant stream of propaganda with her that I have to address. I cannot let this stuff slip by. All right, so let's listen to this propaganda one more time and break it down line by line from Laura Ingraham.
They use open borders to hold down wages and change the makeup of America. They engage with China as they are to keep Wall Street and their donors happy.
Engage with China to keep Wall Street and their donors happy? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, nothing she just said connected in any way, shape, or form. And for the record, did you hear what she slipped in there? To change the makeup of America? Open borders to change the makeup of America? May have slipped right by you. But that was the Great Replacement Theory is what it's called. And it's actually from a book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Now, I've talked about this probably 1,000 times at this point, but in case you haven't heard of this, I'll insert a little clip explaining it. If you have heard of this, skip forward about 8.5 minutes. In 1902, newspapers in Tsarist Russia start publishing this document called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. They came up with, I don't know, like 15 or 18 of them, or I don't remember exactly how many. They claimed that they found these documents on dead Jewish soldiers, and they were like articles that describe how the Jews were going to like accomplish world domination. Now, this is completely made up. It was anti-Semitic propaganda, obviously. There was no dead Jewish soldier. There were no elders of Zion. It was all completely fabricated from the ground up. But it was used to demonize a minority group within the country. And if there's one thing we've learned over the past couple of years even, it's that fascists and extremists love to blame all of their problems on minorities. Hitler, when he eventually came around, even reprinted copies of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and wrote about it in Mein Kampf, like talked about how the Jews are trying to take over and all this other stuff. But in 1923, about 20 years after it came out, it was discovered that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was actually plagiarized, full-blown, copied and pasted, or the writing version of copied and pasted, the early 1900s version of copy and paste, straight from an 1854 satire book, a French satire book that didn't even mention Jews. It was just straight up plagiarized. 80% of it was plagiarized from this 1854 book, thus putting the final nail in the coffin, proving that this was completely forged. It was fake. It was just propagandistic bullshit created by, anti-Semites to destroy the Jewish community. So that is what the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is. This is actually a copy of it right here. Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It was compiled into a book in 1905 called Protocols of the Meetings of the Learned Elders of Zion. A little bit longer, but yeah, it's all fake. It was all completely faked. I'm not exactly sure how many protocols there are. 10 at least. There may be more than that. Well, anyway, protocols includes things like, just listen to like one or two lines here. In miserable Russia, the Jews are less than 5% of the population, yet they hold over 90% of the official positions. Russians and Jews are very much different, yet Russia is governed by a mere handful of unprincipled Jews. The 95% of Russians have only a 10% say-so about their own government, and even the 10% in office are but lickspittle, or fronts, to the domineering Jews. To the reasoning mind, such a condition of affairs seems impossible, yet the condition exists. In fact, a careful study to the protocols alone will clear up the mystery. Now that you've read that one sentence from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a book supposedly discovered on a dead Jewish soldier, written by Jews in power, listen to what this televangelist Lance Wallnau says. He's about to explain Seven Mountains Dominionism, or the Seven Mountains Mandate, which is the televangelist's plan to take control of the country. I'm not joking. This is from early March 2022.
3% of the population, roughly 3 to 4% of the population, are radical leftist elites. 30% of the population are evangelical born-again Christians that are inclined to go towards Pentecostal language. I mean, we're really out there. 30% against 3%, but they neutralize the church because they're also in religion. They changed the definition of marriage, so they've taken over family. They've totally taken over academia, so the education institutions are teaching leftist theology or leftist ideology and silencing conservatives. They're controlling government right now. They've taken over legacy media, Hollywood, entertainment, and arts, and now they've got Wall Street.
These are the 7 mountains, the 7 areas of society that they want to take over to control society in a Christian nationalist state, is what he's describing right now. This came straight out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, directly lifted from it. Did Lance Wallnau lift it? I don't know. Somebody did and provided this information to him, and he started repeating it. Somebody lifted it directly from Protocols.
This is 3%. 30% of the population is Christian. How is it that 30% are dominated by 3%? They have a worldview for bringing their kingdom here now.
I'm dead serious. This came straight from Protocols. Jews are less than 5% of the population, yet hold over 90% of the official positions. Russians and Jews are very much different, yet Russia's governed by a mere handful of unprincipled Jews. I mean, you're seeing the similarities, right? There are other similarities. I can't find it at this moment, but there's another part that talks about Jews attempting to spread Darwinism and Marxism through society because they're wonderfully destructive ideologies. They're trying to spread them through society to destroy society. Does this sound familiar? Darwinism, Marxism, saying that they destroy society. The leftists are setting out to destroy it. Seriously. Word for word, the tactics being used on the right at the moment. That's what Protocols of Elders of Zion is. That's what it's all about. That's where a lot of televangelists are getting their ideas from. Directly, I don't know. Setting out to deceive? I don't know. Are they even aware of this document? I have no idea. But it's copied word for word in some situations, and it's uncanny. Oh, here's another one. The idea that Jews eat babies, or that the elites drink adrenochrome from children. That's straight from Protocols of the Elders of Zion. QAnon is nothing more than a rebranded Nazi death cult. Every conspiracy theory you can come up with came from this document. The conspiracy theory that Jews eat babies or that they drink the blood of children, that's from Protocols. Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The idea that they control the big banks and the media and all of the other stuff, Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's from this document right here. The conspiracy theory that they try to cancel people that they don't like, cancel culture, Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's all from this. The idea that Marxism and Darwinism are evil and that they're trying to use it to destroy society, Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's all from this. Every conspiracy theory in the past 100 years that you can think of. The Great Replacement, where they're trying to bring in other groups of immigrants to destroy our culture and to outweigh votes and things like that. Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The conspiracy theory that Jewish people are trying to enslave the world or whatever other thing. It's all from this book. Dead serious. This is where pretty much all anti-Semitism stems from. Or, well, I guess that's not exactly accurate. This is a compilation of all anti-Semitism from the past 1,000 years. It was all put into a book right here, and it was passed around Nazi Germany. And, get this, it was passed around the Middle East by the KGB in the 20th century. Passed around in Iran and Saudi Arabia and all of the other Middle Eastern countries in that area, Egypt and all of them, by the KGB to make the Middle East hate Israel even more. That's at least part of the reason why Iran absolutely hates Israel and why they're Holocaust deniers. Or not Iran necessarily, but the leadership in Iran. That's why they're like that. Because the KGB passed these conspiracy theories around over the past 100 years. Thanks, past me. So that's the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and that's the origins of the Great Replacement theory, what Laura Ingraham was just repeating. She's repeating Nazi propaganda right now. Laura Ingraham repeating Nazi propaganda. Really.
Product of the regime's agenda. It is their agenda. They use open borders to hold down wages and change the makeup of America. They engage with China as they are to keep Wall Street and their donors happy, which then offshores jobs and hurts our workers. They push for
Okay, I have no idea what she means.
endless wars that are enormously expensive and that we don't win. And then, of course, they use climate change to lower our standard of living as well.
It's funny to hear her talk about endless wars that we never win when she was absolutely in favor. Well, Fox News as a corporation, absolutely in favor of the Iraq War, ran propaganda for it 24/7. Ran propaganda for the war in Afghanistan and for every other war, pretty much. These people never met a war they didn't like. Up until the war between Russia and Ukraine. Isn't that weird? Is that weird to anybody else? This is the one war that they suddenly don't want us to get involved in? Huh. How about that? You know, this is a strategy that was maybe not created, but at the very least employed in the 1940s by a guy named Charles Lindbergh. You may know him as one of the people that flew across the Atlantic Ocean for the first time, something like that. He's a famous pilot. Anyways, he started the America First movement in 1941 as a method of assisting Hitler. Charles Lindbergh hated Jews, hated them. Talked about it pretty frequently. I mean, it's on record. You can just look up his quotes about Jews. Well, I can't find the exact quote. I released a video on my Fireside channel. If you want to hear the exact quote, I give it to you. But the idea that Charles Lindbergh, the founder of the America First Party, the idea that he basically espoused was Jews run the media and they run the banks and the this and the that. All false, of course. And he was sick of it. He was sick of Jews, having all this power and control, and wanted to start the America First Party basically so that, quote over, now I'm explaining. He wanted to start the America First Party basically so that he could prevent the United States from getting involved in World War II, because he knew if the U.S. got involved in World War II, it would turn the tide of the war, and the Jews had a chance of surviving as a race, and he did not want that. That was basically the bottom line. That was the point of the America First movement, to prevent Jews from surviving World War II, pretty much. Now, America First still exists. Donald Trump is a part of it. He talks about America First all the time. I'm sure you've probably heard him say America First, right? It's barely a dog whistle to the idea that, to the Nazi Party, honestly. Barely a dog whistle. Now, what we have Laura Ingraham here saying, listen to this again.
Wall Street and their donors happy, which then offshores jobs and hurts our workers. They push for endless wars that are enormously expensive and that we don't win. And then, of course,
apparently, she's opposed to wars all of a sudden. For the first time in 20 years, somebody on Fox News is apparently opposed to wars. How about that? Isn't that interesting? We've finally found somebody at Fox News that's opposed to wars. Actually, everybody at Fox News is opposed to war. Not wars, but war. The war between Russia and Ukraine. They don't want to be involved. Interesting, isn't it? What are the chances that we've found the one war that they don't like? Anyway, the point is, the America First movement was created to assist the Nazis. And honestly, I think that's what's happening right now. This movement that Laura Ingraham is a part of exists solely to assist Vladimir Putin and Russia in the war against Ukraine.
you know this is their plan, because if it wasn't, well, they'd alter their course.
Who is they? Are they in the room with us right now, Laura? Whose plan is it? You know, when people like Laura Ingraham, or when anybody really, uses the word they without establishing the subject of the sentence the way that she just did, it's almost always a reference to the global elites or the Jews or, you know, the leftists or whatever. People that they don't like. People that they want to see suffer. People that they consider to be their enemies.
They use climate change to lower our standard of living as well in fight against any emissions that we put into the atmosphere. But they totally ignore the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, China.
Nobody is ignoring China's emissions. In fact, China met their emissions goals 5 years early, from my understanding, didn't they? I just heard that recently. Like, yes, we recognize China is a large emitter, and we all have to work together in this situation to resolve the problem. What the hell is wrong with Laura Ingraham? She's just looking for things to... She's just repeating these propaganda lines. That's it. That's what she's doing. She just repeats propaganda over and over and over and over again.
But how many liberals, for instance, are really upset that California and New York, liberal utopias, they're losing population?
Okay, is that even true? I don't know if that's true. First of all, is California losing population? Well, either way, let's just say that were true. California is still one of the largest populated states. I mean, they have an economy that rivals the size of small countries. Seriously, California is gigantic. And also, I don't know what that has to do with anything. So what? California has lost a few people, if that's even true. Why do I care? What does that have to do with your propaganda?
Democrats love the results so much that they even hope that, look, Gavinomics goes national soon.
Talking about Gavin Newsom and his apparent economic system? Gavin Newsom hasn't invented an economic system. What the hell is she talking about? Gavinomics. What?
President Newsom.
Going on the road to take the fight to states where freedom is most under attack. We have a lot of work to do to build a movement to counter what's happening in red states across this country.
In 2016, the American people voted for Trump because they were tired of government of the elites, by the elites, and for the elites.
Yeah, okay. That's a fair statement. That is one of the reasons why people voted for Donald Trump. Unfortunately, they were suckered because Donald Trump is also one of those elites, obviously. I can't believe anybody fell for that.
That haven't had enough of the norms of Clinton, Bush, and Obama, and they chose a different path.
Yes, that's fair enough. I agree.
Yet, of course, to the left, it was a nightmare. The fact that Americans were becoming more independent and that America was standing up for itself again, that terrified them.
No, that's not what terrified me. What terrified me is the fact that Donald Trump is one of the elites, and as corrupt as it gets, he will do whatever it takes to further his own goals. He is a terrible person in every way, and I can't believe that she's defending him right now. Like, holy shit, dude. Didn't he say something negative about her? He said something negative about just about every Fox News host. Why is Fox News defending Trump right now?
So much so that they decided to do the...
I'm sorry, you know what? I know the answer to that. The answer is because they're cucks. I think that's the proper use of the word, right? Cuck? Is that the correct word to use there? We're in cuck territory here. They'll do anything for this dude.
Yet, of course, to the left, it was a nightmare. The fact that Americans were becoming more independent and that America was standing up for itself again, that terrified them. So much so that they decided to do the ultimate norm busting and use the DOJ, the FBI, and FISA to try to destroy Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah. So it's definite. So Donald Trump breaks some laws, legitimately breaks some laws, violates the Espionage Act. Seriously. No joke. Violates the Espionage Act, and it's everybody else's fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. It's everybody else's fault. See how that works? Yeah, that checks out. Totally. That makes complete sense.
If the country really wants to get back to a healthy normal, we must refuse to allow the left to mainstream decline, deviancy, and corruption.
What the hell does that mean? The left mainstreaming decline, deviancy, and corruption? In what way does the left do that?
And that's the angle. Joining us now is Elbridge Colby.
And that's the angle. Okay, wow. So it was basically, I guess that's a segment on her show. And it's like one constant string of propaganda lines that she says over and over and over and over and over again that she expects her audience to already understand and know about. That is really fascinating to me, actually, to listen to her kind of propagandize for, how long was it? 10 minutes straight? Yep. Wow, that was really interesting, actually.